Well, as always, a shout out to our sponsor of the podcast, Home Street Bank. If you're looking for a bank that is going to give you everything you need, great people, tremendous service, really great rates, this is where you want to go. This is my lender. This is my lender of choice. I think it should be yours as well. Go to homestreetbank.com for everything you need, both business and personal. That's homestreetbank.com. How can you create a comfortable and pleasant environment for your customer? An environment that's going to make it easy for them to buy. Well, that's a decision that you can make and that you must make. Stay tuned. We'll get into it on today's episode of The Buyer's Mind.
Welcome to The Buyer's Mind, where we take a closer look deep inside your customer's decision-making mechanism to reverse engineer the perfect sales presentation. Now, please welcome your host, Jeff Shore.
Welcome, everyone, once again to The Buyer's Mind, the podcast where we try and investigate the way that our customers think, the way that they make decisions, and how our own presentation is going to affect them. If we understand the way that a customer thinks, you know what we get to do? We get to reverse engineer our sales presentation to make it easy for them to buy. And that's what we want to do. We want to make it easy for them to buy. And you know what's interesting about that? When you think about it for you right now, just if you're listening to this podcast, there are places of business where you are more likely to spend money, where you are okay with that. There are stores out there or businesses that you go to and you go, yeah, you know what? Even before I walk through the door, it won't break my heart to spend a little money here. Paul Murphy, show producer here. Hey, Murph, do you have a store like that? Is there a store that you go into and at least in the back of your mind, you're like, hey, yeah, I wouldn't mind dropping a few dollars right now?
Yeah, I can't go into a Best Buy and not want to drop a few dollars. It's my tech paradise.
Yes. Yeah, the tech guys love Best Buy and wonder what's in there that we might be able to look like. Hey, listen, Apple stores are like that for me. I like spending money at Apple stores. And the people that aren't paid on commission, they just know how to create a great environment. And what happens here is that we are more comfortable. This is just a human nature thing here, but we are more comfortable with our spending in these pleasant, feel-good environments, in places of great and positive culture. So if I think of two examples, one that we can all relate to, I think, just think about how easy it is to spend money at Disneyland or Disney World, right? So you're there, you're in the Magic Kingdom, you got your kids or your niece or your nephew, whoever it is, and you're walking around, and what are you doing? That nostalgia is bringing you back into the experiences that you had. You know you had Mickey Mouse ears. How could they not have Mickey Mouse ears? And even as you're walking around, you're like, and it's overpriced, right? It's a lot of money, and you know it's a lot of money. But it's easy to spend money at Disneyland because you know it's a happy place. You know that the memories are going to be great by the time you're done. And what happens here? It's to quote the movie A Field of Dreams, for it is money that they have and peace that they lack, right? This is the idea. So Disneyland is a place where it's easy to spend money. I'll give you one other example. I was in San Jose not that long ago doing a presentation, and I drove nearby to a store. It's called Pure Hockey, and I'm a hockey player, and this is a hockey store. It's just a huge store with sticks and pads and jerseys and skates and everything else that you could ever want. And I got to tell you, the guys at Pure Hockey were awesome. There were like 4 people working there, and you could just tell they enjoyed each other, they enjoyed me, they enjoyed the other customers. It was just a really pleasant, fun environment. And I've just felt very comfortable being there. It didn't really look like they were trying to sell me anything, but it was a great culture. It felt like a great culture. And by the time I was done, I bought a new stick, I bought a new helmet, I bought new hockey pants, and a few other things as well. I even got a hat, a Pure Hockey hat. So what happens here? When we think about great sales environments are defined by their culture. And you have to ask yourself the question, what kind of culture do you create in your one-on-one sales experience? Sometimes we think the culture is about the entire organization. But if there's only you and one other customer, that's the culture right there. And the cultural message belongs to you. It is yours to have. So how do you put your customer in that eased state of mind? And just a couple of thoughts along those lines. First of all, there's the mindset of being your best self. How can I make sure right out of the gate I am the best version of me right from the very beginning? Because you only get that very, very brief period of time to make that seriously strong connection. How can you be your best self? Secondly, give yourself this mantra for the first few minutes of the sales conversation. No solving and no selling. That's not what I'm trying to do. As salespeople, we are so quick to want to solve problems. We are so quick to want to say, oh, wait, I've got a solution for you. But until we fully understand the customer, until we fully understand what's going on in their mind, in their life, in their organization, whatever it is, you're going to get into trouble. No solving and no selling. Just put a governor on your own desire to jump in and take over. And then finally, shoot for mutual purpose. We're looking for that opportunity to establish mutual purpose with our customer. The idea that we are on the same page and we are headed towards the same goal. Ultimately, when we create great environments, great cultures, we make it easy for customers to do what they want to do anyway. We make it easy for them to buy. Well, Eric Chester is the author of 6 leadership books. He's the founder of the Center for Work Ethic Development. He's all about employee engagement and a workplace culture. He's also a Hall of Fame speaker. He's delivered over 2,000 paid keynote speeches on 3 continents: Harley-Davidson, McDonald's, AT&T, Alcoa. You know all the names. And on a personal note, Eric has mentored me directly on my speaking prowess. I've had the great privilege of learning from him. You'll get the opportunity to do that right now today. Welcome, Eric Chester. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, Jeff. Great to be with you.
Yeah, let's have some fun. Are you calling in, I take it, from beautiful Golden, Colorado?
Golden, Colorado. So if you have a nice cold Coors or Coors Light next to you, you can think of me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Hey, let me start here. You are the National Speakers Association has the very rare air called Hall of Fame. It's not something that you just ask to get into. Your peers have to all agree that you belong in that very, very rare club with the Zig Ziglars of the world. It's an honor to talk to you just based on that alone. But when did you first know that you wanted to be a keynote speaker?
You know, I wish I could answer that by saying I had this plan, that it was all sought out, but really it's not. I'm a former high school business teacher and coach that lost his job because there were more baby boomer teachers than there were positions available. If you were a late baby boomer, which I was, I taught high school back when the Gen Xers were coming through, and we all know Gen X was a smaller generation. Right. So schools were facing declining enrollment. We're losing teachers, and I had to do something. Mm-hmm. My parents were printers, printed up a flyer saying I was a motivational speaker. I didn't have a speech, but I had a flyer. So I wound up getting calls, basically starting to work with youth. Yeah. And just learned on the job, just kind of, through the grunts and the groans, just figured out what it was that young people needed to hear, wanted to hear, and should have to hear. And so I kind of built my career starting to work with youth, and that's how it started, Jeff.
So look, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you were a teacher, you were working with young people, you really had a desire to pour yourself into the lives of young people. That was the goal. You just had no idea that you'd be pretty dang good at this, as it turns out.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as a speaker. I'm a speaker. I didn't even know. All I knew is, hey, if I have something valuable to say, let's see where it goes. I didn't sit down and say, okay, how much money can I make doing this? I think so many people get into business, get into whatever career by looking, at the menu from right to left. How much money can I make, and then what do I have to do? Right. And really, when you think about it, if you ask yourself, what have I earned the right to think about, to talk about, to sell, to do? What have I earned the right? And from that perspective, rather than just here's what would make me happy. Just what are my tools? What are my gifts? How do I put them out there, as Larry Winget might say, in the service of other people? And if you do it right, there's a good chance you might be able to eke out a living that way.
But it is interesting. It's an interesting spin, because oftentimes I think people look at keynote speakers, motivational speakers, and as sort of entertainers. But you and I know when in the class of characters that you're going to hang out with, the Nito Quibins of the world, the Mark Sanborns of the world, these people are rocks. These are smart dudes.
Well, they're smart, and I think that's. It really, when it comes to actually speaking, and I'm sure your network knows, you're an outstanding speaker. You just didn't just say, hey, I want to be a speaker. You were exceptional in sales, and people said, hey, Jeff, teach us what you know. And you found out that, hey, I mean, I left the profession of teaching back in the 80s, but I really never did. My classroom just changed. So if you really have something to say and you've developed your mechanism for delivering that thing, when you combine the content and the delivery together, perhaps maybe then you can inspire other people, lead them wherever they want to go, or at least deliver a kind of message that people are willing to say, that's worth something to me. And then when you do, you have something you can sell, hence being a quote speaker or a professional speaker. But it's more that I feel like I have this knowledge now working with companies that employ youth. I've learned from so many of the best, and I put those ideas together and I share them in various ways. One way is the spoken word, and it's cool to get a paycheck that way.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. You work with companies, Eric, on issues surrounding workplace culture. And, we talk here on The Buyer's Mind about how customers make purchase decisions. I want to bridge that gap. So we know that customers want to work with nice people. We've often spoken of here that that nice is translated as likable, and likable is trustworthy. And if you're trustworthy, you're a better influencer. And so what we find here, and I've certainly seen it in my history in the corporate world, that so many company leaders are going to send out an email or a memo, or maybe even have some really swell motivational posters that encourage people to be nice. I have a feeling you're going to tell us that it goes much deeper and that those posters may not be as effective as the executives think they are.
Well, I mean, nice goes out the window when all of a sudden your expectations are not met. And I've heard it said that anger comes from unfulfilled expectations. It's easy to be nice when you expect people to be nice. Look, I'm a guest on your show. I'm sitting here. All I'm getting is $1.5 million for my time today. So I'm going to be nice to you, right?
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? So the bottom line is we expect some courtesy. But if I'm on this call right now and you vary from my expectations, you ask me about the boiling temperature of water or the sum of an isosceles triangle. You ask me about the rising cost of buffalo meat in China. You say something that insults me. All of a sudden, next thing you know, my expectations are not met and I go away from nice. And so oftentimes nice is a great theory, but how in the world do you stay nice? How in the world do you feel that? How are you going to provide that? And the reality is, as you're talking, we've got to get into the minds of the people we're doing business with. And that's not a manipulative tactic. That is just one of pure empathy and letting go and trying to be as present as you possibly can with the prospect, the people that are in front of you, and hoping that, and of course being nice, but understanding that maybe it takes a side trip.
But you work with organizations that have these cultures of nice. I mean, I'm not a Harley rider, but I've been to several Harley Davidson stores just because the experience is so cool. Or you go to a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out or fly Southwest Airlines, and you see this happen all the time, where there just seems to be kind of a culture of nice. How intentional is that?
Well, I think it's very intentional. I think often that stems from shared values. We all know that Chick-fil-A, is no secret, is a culture that was built by a Southern Baptist gentleman.
Right.
And his culture was, look, this is how I believe people ought to be treated. I'm going to treat my employees the same way I want them to treat my guests. In my house, we don't work on Sunday. So guess what? I'm not going to make you work on Sunday. That's why they close their stores on Sunday. The shared values run so deep that they're able to find people in the community that share those values. And when you share those values, it's a lot easier than saying, hey, look, we're just going to bring you in. We don't care where you came from, what you are. We're going to show you a couple of videos and a few posters and take you through a quick training program. And then all of a sudden you'll just play like one of us. Well, no, it doesn't work. You've got to get people who are genuinely committed to that. So when you find people that have that shared mindset, I think Southwest Airlines and Ritz-Carlton and Starbucks and all these companies that we hear about that perpetuate values, they're basically looking and saying, look, this is who we are and what we do. And we only want to hire people who feel and see life fairly much the way we do. We're not asking you don't have to adopt our theology. And it's the same with Chick-fil-A. We just want what we believe in and you to believe in to be in alignment. And that's a very important part of culture.
But what's interesting about that is that as a consumer, we want to be a part of that shared value as well, right? There's not enough people who are really nice to us. I find that when I walk into a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out, or even when I, like you, I'm on planes all the time. When I board a Southwest Airlines, I'm a nicer person when I step onto that plane because it's Southwest Airline. I'm a nicer person when I'm ordering a cheeseburger at In-N-Out than if I were to ever to go to McDonald's. Although they have great fries, the service leaves a little bit desired. There's not a culture of nice.
Exactly. And to get back onto Southwest Airlines, what if you're with Southwest and they have a delayed flight and you see people who are all upset because they're not ready? How do they handle that? Mm-hmm. Again, it goes back to values, culture. Here's how we deal with it at Southwest. Culture simply answers the question, how are things done around here? And when a company is a values-based company and they go, this is who we are, this is how we treat people, and they take those core values, they hire around them, right? So they ask questions. So let's say Federal Express. We know Federal Express is a company that highly values reliability. It's got to be there overnight, on time, da-da-da. So they're not just going to hire somebody and say, reliability is important to us. Is it important to you? Yep. Okay, next question.
Yeah, right.
They go in to find out how. What do you do when you're stuck in traffic? How do you respond when your alarm clock goes off late? They want to know, what does reliability look like in your life? So A, you got to hire around those values. Number two, you want to train around those values. So you bring people in, and every time as you're going through training, you're consistently using the same terminology, same words, same examples. People are seeing it modeled, right? Then you praise people around those values. When you see those values acted out in your company or what have you, you acknowledge them. Hey, fantastic, great job in handling that customer. They were angry when they came in. They're happy when they left. You made the difference thing. You acknowledge that. When people are off course, you discipline around those values. You pull your values out and go, this is who we are. And we're not seeing that modeled in what you're doing right now. And so that's what you do. That's how you become those kinds of legendary cultural companies that you're bringing up, Jeff.
You're on stage a great deal. I would argue that salespeople are also on a type of a stage. In 1999, James Gilmore Joseph Pine wrote The Experience Economy. A big part of that book was centered around the idea of business as theater, and that everything that we do that is customer facing puts us in that front stage. So what are some tactics for preparing for that really great front stage experience? What have you seen even in your own organizations where they look at it and they go, okay, folks, it is showtime right now, and we're going to put on the best show that we can for the people who are willing to buy tickets?
Well, the first thing you do is who your audience is, right? If you know your prospect, it's sales 101. I'm not saying anything in here. Somebody's pulling over to the side of the road and say, I better write that down. You know your prospect. The more research you do as a salesperson, just like me, if I walk into an audience, I can't just say, look, give them speech 101-2. I don't do that. I write my material from the inside out. I've got to have client calls. I've got to know what's the biggest issues you're facing right now. Who have you had recently? What issues struck? I interview some of the people that are in the room. I find those things out prior to giving a presentation because I want to know everything that could possibly happen. I want to know the mindset. Where are these people? And I also, not only what the general mindset is that morning, what's happening before me? What's going to happen afterwards? Did they have cocktails the night before? What's going on? The more that I know about where those people in the room are going to be when I walk in, when I'm introduced. Have there been 3 speakers before me and I'm the only thing separating them from a golf tournament, right? Has it been late at night? Have they been around a cocktail bar and all of a sudden they've had cocktails and they've had dinner and now all of a sudden let's bring on our speaker? That's a totally different mindset. Could be the same group, different time of day. Where are they? What are they thinking? And then you kind of start blending. What do they need to know? Feel, what should they know, et cetera, and what is my responsibility and how can I deliver that? I have the same mindset when I'm talking to a client trying to get a gig. I'm selling myself. And if I can turn around and go, here's what I do. This is me. This is me. This is me. This is me. I lose those sales. Where I win is when I turn around and go, tell me about your culture. What's going on? What kind of issues you're having? What are your managers saying right now? Why do you think that's difficult? Who do you think's getting it right? Why do you think they're getting it right? People love to talk about themselves. They like to talk about their successes. The more that helps me understand how to make a connection, it also makes somebody believe, which is true, that I really care about them and that I am going to go the distance for them, that I'm not just going to plug and play, just the same speech that I gave to the last audience, but I'm going to take out the word McDonald's and I'm going to put in the word Burger King.
Right.
Because it's different.
Right. I've been thinking recently about the concept of organizational stress, and it seems that organizational stress becomes personal stress in a hurry. It gets adopted. Do you see that happen? And what are some of the ways that employees can keep a positive mindset in the face of organizational stress?
Well, and organizations are all going through massive upheaval right now. You know as well as I do, we're in just these perpetual times of change, and job security is an oxymoron. So the stress that companies are going through, it bleeds to the organization. And the more that great leaders and managers are able to dissipate some of that, take some of that on, give assurances, and try to treat people as individuals rather than commodities, the more that they're able to do that, the more they're able to alleviate that stress. So, that's one thing. And employees that feel stressful, well, you know what? It's the free agent mentality. You've got to turn around and go, I need to find a place where I feel comfortable, where I feel wanted, I feel valued, I feel my ideas. And it may not be a place that you may be able to get more money somewhere else. So you've got to look at what your values are. Is the most important thing to me the paycheck I bring home? Because I can make a whole lot more money working for manager A than I could for manager B. But I hate working for manager A. Well, you signed up for it. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. You've got to ask yourself, where does my peace of mind? Where does my opportunity? What does that mean to me? So the more that you look at that, and great salespeople, good question, because great salespeople, there's nothing that's in higher demand right now than people who really know how to connect, communicate, and gain that kind of trust. Great salespeople are in very high demand. So, if it's just a check, as well as I do, there's some churn and burn organizations out there.
Right.
But if you're looking for more, you got to be willing to be flexible.
All right. Along those lines, then, what advice do you have for that young person who is in their first, shall we say, real job? I know you've spent a lot of time studying the changes, the generational changes, and what we see differently. So if you had a millennial sit in front of you right now and they had just told you, I landed my first real job, what advice would you give them?
I tell you, Jeff, that's really important because my kids are that age, and I tell anybody sitting in front of me that really wanted the same thing I tell my kids, which I love more than life itself. And that is, number one, business is a brutal battlefield. It's not fun. It's not easy. Nobody is out there just going, I'm cheering for you. I want you to win. It's tough. Understand that and be willing to play the game. There are easier professions than to being anywhere around the field of business. So understand it's tough, and you got to be tough, but that doesn't mean you have to be a jerk, right? Let other people be jerks. Be an honest person. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with the people that you deal with. Say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say. Always look to improve yourself. Take criticism. People are going to try to train you. It doesn't matter what degree you have. They're going to tell you, hey, I need you to learn this, and everything that you thought you knew might get thrown out the window. Don't get frustrated. Be open to learning. Be a sponge. Soak up what you can. Read more than you have to. Learn more than you have to, right? Try to be the first to work, the last to leave. Right now, we're talking about the NFL season. They're talking about rookies that are the first ones on the field, the last ones to leave the field. Those are the ones that are getting noticed, not necessarily the highest draft picks. Be willing to work harder than anybody else. Be open to doing anything they ask you to do. Your job is not just to be an accountant. If somebody spilled a mess as you walk into your office, go grab a mop, a broom, a vacuum. Be willing to be a team player. It'll get you noticed. Work harder. Be early. Be coachable. Those kinds of things are going to set you way apart.
I love it. I always taught my kids that the world is absolutely full of people who are willing to do the minimum they need to not get fired. And it just reeks of mediocrity. In reality, it's not that difficult to stand out. It doesn't take that much extra effort. But you're absolutely right. Learning that early on in life, man, it'll absolutely mark your entire career.
And finally, Jeff, one more point.
Sure, please.
Be patient.
Yeah.
I mean, the world tells you that it's a hurry up, that you should be able to, in 2 years, you could, develop your own app and be a mega millionaire, that everything should happen right now. It's a lie. things take time. Be patient. Be willing to put in your dues. Don't just jump at the first sign of, hey, I can make a couple bucks more an hour over here. I can do this. I can do that. Don't be one of those people. Keep your head down. I know it's hard. Do what you're supposed to do. And I promise you, it'll pay off. Think long term. Don't think short term.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're almost out of time. Tell us what it's like, Eric, to be on stage in front of a huge audience. I mean, the mega audience. Is it? You're a pro. You've delivered thousands of speeches all around the world. But I still have to believe, and you and I have never had this conversation directly, but I still have to believe you get pretty darn geeked up when you got that huge audience out there in front of you.
You know, the truth be told, Jeff, people think that getting geeked up is hinged upon the number of people who you're in front of. If I'm in front of a group I know I have a valuable message for them, it doesn't matter who's in the audience.
Yeah, good answer.
But you put me in front of 10 kindergartens, I'm a basket case. I'm not prepared. I don't know what to do in front of 10 kindergartners.
Yeah.
Or you put me in front of 1,000 managers, but you say, hey, your topic is territorial sales management. I don't know what to say. That's not my topic area.
Right.
So I think it boils down to, if you know your subject material and you know the people who are in your audience, whether you're dealing with one person or you're dealing with 20,000 people, you can make an impact. But it's the right fit. And it's the same thing with salespeople. If you know your product, you know your competitor's product, you know what you're doing, and you take the time to know your prospect. It's the difference in going in, going, I wonder if this is going to go okay, I hope, and feeling 10 foot tall and bulletproof. It's just that knowing, that confidence, and you have to have it. So it is, you know, it's an honor to be in front of a lot of people, but it's an honor to be in front of anybody when somebody wants your time. So there you go.
Well said. Well said. Hey, before we let you go, little tradition here on the Buyer's Mind. We're going to put you on the hot seat. Rapid fire questions, rapid fire answers. You ready?
Got it.
There we go. Your very first job.
Washing dishes in a Chinese restaurant for $1 an hour underneath the table.
When you were 10, you thought you would be what?
I thought I was going to be a sportscaster. I love sports. I wasn't a great athlete, and I watched Monday Night Football. I thought I was going to be the next Howard Cosell.
Love it. The most beautiful place you've ever stood?
Would be on the balcony in Maui looking over a beach that was just incredible.
Love it. A book, any book, that made a profound impact on your life?
I think 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was a changer for me.
You bet. A movie you've seen multiple times, but you would absolutely watch again if it came on?
That Thing You Do.
Great movie. All right. And finally, your first celebrity crush.
Oh, geez. Gosh, my first celebrity crush was probably, I'm going to go back to Farrah Fawcett. Charlie's Angels, seeing her on that poster, I mean, just above my bed. I mean, wow, I was drooling.
The best-selling poster of all time, no question about it. There he is, Eric Chester. You can find Eric at ericchester.com. That's Eric with a C, chester.com. And there you're going to find out how to get any of his 6 books. You can read his blog. If you were looking to hire a true Hall of Fame speaker for your event, Eric Chester is the guy. And beyond that, it's just, I can just tell you firsthand, having spent some time with Eric, he's just one of the world's really, really good guys. Eric, thanks for being on the Buyer's Mind.
Hey, I feel the same way about you, Jeff. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Well, Murph, now you see why I have such a high respect for Eric Chester, and why, quite frankly, most anybody who ever meets Eric feels the same way. You get the sense he's a little coffee worthy, isn't he?
Very coffee worthy. Obviously, a very well spoken person, and why he's such a speaker in high demand.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is a speaker in high demand. He's also just, I've had the opportunity to have dinner at his house. He's just a really, really likable guy. He's just an easygoing guy. He really, really is. I really love some of the things that he was talking about here, and a few that stuck out for me. One was the idea that when we think about our culture, about the culture that we are presenting. It's about shared values. And culture answers the question, as Eric said, it answers the question, how are things done around here? And when you say done, it doesn't mean how does a task get performed. It's how are things spoken about? What is the general tone in that culture? And there's no question about it. Salespeople who are sort of on stage right there, as we had discussed, they are the ones that own the culture. And when we think about those places where we really like to do business, and Murph, you mentioned Best Buy earlier on, when you get that really knowledgeable, really interested person that you're working with at Best Buy, it changes your whole experience, right? The whole culture changes based on one person, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you start experiencing that positive energy from somebody, your energy can't go anywhere but up, right? We talked about it even with you, talking about the fact that if you have a customer and they have a negative attitude, and a salesperson has a negative attitude, it's a lose-lose situation. But if you have a positive attitude, you're more than likely to bring that customer up to your level.
And really, you have to if you want to have any kind of a meaningful conversation and solve their problem. One other thing that Eric talked about that I was really great was the idea of knowing your audience. Now, as salespeople, we all know we're supposed to know our audience, but boy, I really liked what Eric was saying about knowing your audience so well because you've researched, and the more you research, the more that you can tailor. And I want to just take off on that a little bit for all of you salespeople and ask you the question, how well do you really know your audience? And before you answer, the follow-up question is, have you actually done research on this? So, for example, if 60% of your customers are from China, you should probably spend some time on Wikipedia. You should be studying China. You should be studying what the culture is about, a little bit of the history of China, about the idea that you've got Mandarin and Cantonese and where each of those are spoken and how many different dialects there are, how big China is, how many people are there, how many people come from China to the United States. I mean, you should spend some time on that. You should spend some time learning that. If the majority of your clients are college educated in upper end university, you probably need to spend some time on LinkedIn, learning who those people are and what their experience is like and what they're bringing into your environment. How well do you know your customer? Whether it has to do with their demographics, their psychographics, whether it's where they're from, how old they are, how much money they make, where they are used to shopping. I mean, all of these things are going to pay off. So as a sales manager of a real estate company, what do? We took all of our salespeople to a Lexus dealership and had our sales meeting there. And we met with their number one salesperson and with the sales manager, because the people who buy a Lexus were also buying our homes. And the people who were buying our homes drove a Lexus. So what do we have to learn from you about that customer? And what do you have to learn from us? And it was just our opportunity to research and to understand that on a deeper level. And I just want to challenge you right now to ask you the question, what can you learn about the customers that you know you're going to work with anyway? You know you're going to work with them anyway. What can you learn? How do you get into their shoes? How do you learn their experience? How do you feel what they feel? How do you understand what they are stressed out about? If we're thinking about it from that perspective, you have to be able to step into their shoes. If you're selling a software that's going to make organizations far more effective, you know what you got to do? You got to find a way to get into a business meeting, and you got to see that organization totally struggling in a horribly boring meeting, and you got to feel the pain. If you're selling to young moms, you better have a Pinterest account. If you're selling real estate, you better know who Chip and Joanna Gaines are. Eric talks about company culture. I'm talking about your personal culture. How do you establish your culture such that say, I respect you as my customer so much that I'm willing to do my homework and figure out who you are. And if you do that, you're going to stand apart from every other salesperson. And when you stand apart, it gives you the inside track to change their world. We'll see you next time.